Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the J22 Report. I'm your host, Johnnie Market. You all know that drill. Hit the like button, subscribe if you already haven't. Now, the title of this video is Buy Bitcoin if you're bullish on the U.S. economy, the banking system, and the stock market. I will get into that quickly and debunk all these myths about privacy, Bitcoin being a crisis hedge or a hedge against the dollar. Which Bitcoin's none of that. And if you really are scared of the banking system, you buy gold. You don't buy Bitcoin. You only buy Bitcoin if you're bullish on the economy or the stock market. But first, I want to get into one of my friends was messaging me and asked me, how does higher interest rates lead to higher prices and increase inflation? And I was going to say, I'm not speaking historically when I said that, but in this cycle, that can very well happen. And I'll give you an example. What people forget or ignore or forget is during the last cycle of ZIRP, zero interest rate policies, from around 2009 up until basically until 2022, when the Fed finally decided to start hiking rates, is that a lot of companies and consumption habits were subsidized. So the U.S. consumer did not have to pay the full price or cost that a business had to incur. And I'll give you two examples, two very famous, very big companies that everyone listening has probably used. And if you haven't, then you've probably been in a bubble somewhere. Yeah, that's my cat in the background. I'm sorry about that. But one is Uber, and the other is Amazon. And if you look at Amazon, I went to the 2022 annual report. It's still not profitable. It has a negative net income, and it's negative on the free cash flow. And that confirms, it doesn't pay a dividend. If you ask me, I think a lot of these tech companies are using sort of phony accounting. I haven't really dig deep into it, even though I'm an accountant, but look at a lot of these like Meta, Google. They don't pay dividends. That should be a red flag that these companies for the last 10 to 12 years have been cash flowing, have lots of cash on their balance sheets, as they say, but they don't pay dividends. That should be a big red flag. But the other thing is going back, Uber, Amazon. A lot of people purchased it. Well, you know why they had the lowest price? Is because it was subsidized. And when cheap money is taken away, they're going to have to raise their prices. So even though oil prices and commodities have gone down, well, now they can no longer use their ATM, which is at market equity. Equity to subsidize their company. They have to start generating a profit and pay for those expenses without going to market and issuing new shares. The other is Uber. Uber was not profitable at all. All they did was go to market to make up the difference. They would go to market, issue shares, and get money from investors, and just kept issuing equity. All they had to do was keep growing their top line. They didn't have to grow their bottom line. And Uber's still not profitable. So those are two big examples which everyday people uses to get profitability. So those companies, how are they going to become profitable? Well, they're going to have to cut expenses, which I don't think they'll be able to. And the other one is they're going to have to raise prices. They're not going to be able to do it by cutting expenses, because a lot of these companies, they've already announced layoffs, and they've been cutting their salaries and G&A and overhead to the bone. So they're going to have to raise prices, and that will show up in the inflation numbers. And that's why inflation is still high, despite oil going from 110 or 20 or 105 to around 60. I forget the price of oil. I haven't been following it that closely, but I know it's been going down significant. But your cost of living is going up more because a lot of these companies, which subsidize consumer habits, from around 2011 through 2022, they now have to become profitable. And the only way they can do that is by raising prices. So that is the first thing I wanted to say, and that's why I'm bullish. Second of all, one thing that really bothers me, and I was listening to a video, and this was actually a Lynn Aldwin interview. I'm not criticizing her or anything, but they were talking about the people's money and privacy, and how Bitcoin, like, none of it was true. Like, that's the thing. First of all, Bitcoin, I'm going to go to the price history of it came out in around 2009. It started out around 9 cents. It rose all the way up through 2013. And the Fed did their famous taper tantrum. And what happened was Bitcoin just took a dive. And the stock market declined a little bit, but not as much. But then in 2014 onwards, Bitcoin kept going up. It literally, Bitcoin crashed, but it fell like $687. And then it went, and it kept going all the way up until around, I think it was $20,000 in May. I would say around 2018 or 2000. I forget the exact year because this chart's not that great. But that's also when the Fed started raising rates and the stock market went through a small correction. Now, it wasn't like the crash like Bitcoin, but, it started crashing. And it didn't bottom out until June of December 2020. So Bitcoin didn't even do well during the pandemic, during anything. It's never really tested the time of crisis investing. And it never, was rising counterintuitively. It didn't rise with gold during any of the times when gold rose. And then Bitcoin went, I forget the exact number, but it was around June of 2020 all the way to 68,000 roughly around 2021, 2022. This chart is not, these Bitcoin charts are not the best charts. They don't give exact months and dates, but it was around the same time that gold topped out. Or not gold, it was around the same time the stock market topped out. The stock market, that topped out around 2021. And Bitcoin topped out around that same time. It was, and then in year 2022, the Fed started aggressively hiking rates. And the stock market, that has started declining. And Bitcoin started declining with it. And I looked at the year to date, and the stock market, the S&P 500 is up significantly, and so is Bitcoin. So regardless of all the stuff you hear, Bitcoin has never traded inversely with the stock market. If you look at the dollar has been, since 2011, has been in a rip-roaring bull market. So Bitcoin's not trading inverse to the dollar. It's not trading as a hedge against weak dollars. And it traded up a little during March of the regional banking, but the S&P 500 was relatively flat. Gold made a quick bottom and outperformed it. So I believe it outperformed it, but I'd have to completely. But Bitcoin, it trades as a levered play on the stock market. It doesn't trade well in distress. It doesn't trade. It's not a hedge against the weak dollar. The dollar has never been. The dollar index is around 103, or somewhere between that. Let me look up dollar index. Yeah, the Dixie. That's what it's called. The Dixie is 102. It's 102. It's one, and that's even being generous because it's 102.52 as I'm doing this video. So yeah, Bitcoin is not a hedge against the weak dollar. It doesn't do. trade as any type of crisis or safe haven. In fact, if anything, it is a levered play on the stock market and the growing economy. And this is why I say it's also a really hard to find a good fundamental analysis, because the last decade was a decade of economic growth. We had a strong economy. We had a growing economy, and Bitcoin did well. And now I was going to say, in reality, we didn't have a growing economy. I'll be the first to succeed on it. But you have to look at my overview, my videos before. The only economy that matters is the one on paper. Whether the numbers are rigged or not, and I've said I think the numbers are grossly exaggerated, basically lying on some cases, some of the numbers. So yeah, I don't think they're real. But when you're analyzing the markets, that's how they trade. The stock market, that trades on that. If you look at from 2000 to 2011, the economy was declining. The numbers were not good at all. They were significantly worse from the 80s and 90s. And that's why gold was in a bull market. And in the 70s, the economy tanked and inflation went up. So that's why it was in another bull market. But Bitcoin, if it really was a safe haven, or if it really was a disaster, something like the VIX or gold or whatnot, it would have traded. It wouldn't have been in a rip-roaring bull market. The reality is it trades as a levered play. You buy Bitcoin if you believe in the U.S. economy, if you believe in technology. It's like a levered play on the NASDAQ. And so that's the first thing. The other risk in Bitcoin, I'm going to sound anti-Bitcoin, but I'm not. I'm anti these analysts who are doing a poor job of educating people what Bitcoin is. But the other thing about Bitcoin, the first myth is privacy. There are no privacies. All your transactions can be tracked in Bitcoin. There's two people who are very targeted for their political views. They've been able to, I'm not even going to say their name because I don't know what the rules are on community guidelines, but the initials, one of them is Casey, P. Casey, and the other one was NJF. They were subpoenaed by Congress, and the reason why is they got a huge amount of political donations, and they were given to them in Bitcoin. They were tracked. So this whole notion that Bitcoin's private is just not true. You don't have any privacy on Bitcoin. It's no different than using your Visa credit card. It's just, that's the facts. And if you don't like hearing it, too bad. So, you get the same privacy with Visa, Bank of America, as you do with Bitcoin. And then the second thing is there's this one risk to Bitcoin that no one's talking about, is that Sam Bankman-Fried, his charges were quietly dropped. So nothing will happen to him despite the frauding. Something probably as bad or worse than Madoff. So people can steal and loot your blockchain and nothing you can do about it. No legal repercussion. So, there's a lot of risk in Bitcoin. Now, where it's going to go, I'm agnostic to it. But it's not going to rise with gold. It's not. And I do think most of the money made in Bitcoin has already been made. There might be one more run up to 100K. But that will be a 4 or 5. I don't think it will be like the mining stocks or gold. Who knows? But that's what I wanted to get rid of this disinformation, because I'm seeing Bitcoin and money and all that. That's not why you buy Bitcoin. You buy Bitcoin because it is because you're bullish on the U.S. economy, you're bullish on the stock market, and maybe you're bullish on the dollar. 2009 through 2011, the dollar wasn't in a bull market, but Bitcoin is a play on technology. It is not a play, and is a play on a growing economy and a strong economy. It is not a play on crisis, and it's not private. Nothing's private about it, and that's the truth. And so I'm doing this video. Maybe I don't expect it to reach many people, but maybe a couple of people will now know the true fundamentals of Bitcoin. So anyway, if you hit If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you already haven't. And lastly, remember, this is not investment advice. So talk to an advisor or whatnot before making any decisions based on this video. And I'm not a Bitcoin expert, and I don't claim to be, but I probably know more about Bitcoin than anyone listening because no one's been able to point this out. And when looking at markets, here's the last thing. Look at how they trade. Don't read anything. And I'm just saying this is my piece of, what I found out. Before, I encourage people to read and learn. But before you come to conclusion what something is, look at how it trades. That tells you more than any article, any book, or anything else. Look at how it trades. Do not look at... That's why I arrived to my conclusions about gold. About gold needing a stock market crash, a weak market, avenues being cut off. I just looked at how it traded. I decided not to look at, a lot of other people's analysis. And I came to the conclusion that's why you'll see gold's become many. Look at how it trades. If you look how Bitcoin trades, it is a play on technology. It's a play on the stock market. It's a play on the rising economy. And that's what it is. Nothing more. And it's not privacy. It's not a monetary. It's not a crisis hedge. It's none of that. So anyway, I hope to see you next video.